Howdy of you delicious people, I'm here today to review The Boys, Diabolical. So, really, we kind of get, The Boys world, but kind of through this, South Park, Rick and Morty, kind of presentation through most of it. But in some actual episodes, we do get The Boys kind of episodes, and I'm like, oh, okay. We kind of get a dark Looney Tune-ish kind of presentation, but I would not justify every single one of these episodes be worth watching. I could probably justify going on and saying that probably episodes 3, 4, 6, and 8 are probably worthwhile watching, and everything else is just kind of there and exists, and I question why. But you could tell that the people who were making these episodes were having this Looney Tunes approach in mind, and it feels like they were having fun with this show. So, and they were obviously just saying hey man, we could do whatever we want with this. These people gave us kind of free reign to do whatever the heck that we wanted, and so this is what we're putting out. Deal with it. We even have some fourth wall breaking, of course, in especially episode 2, where we just kind of have these goofy characters that are introduced, kind of middle rung of whatever, because they're I obviously wasn't all that important enough, but I guess I'm important enough for this story right now. But then I'll eventually fade into the background, and you'll forget that I even exist. Kind of characters. So we of course have episodes about crap, literally. Just I don't know why there's such this bizarre fixation upon certain items being focused upon, a person's junk, or a pair of fun bags being put upon someone's face, let's just say, in an episode. I'm trying to be very cryptic about how I say words and say things. So, because we have our characters that are trying to have fun here. When really looking at it, I've seen cartoons where we've had it to where basically we have a butt and legs, and a voice is talking out of that butt, and they run with that kind of cartoon. So I can't help but think that it's well, considering there's cartoons like that out there, and those have gone through a real rung of success, then we should go on and I guess have some kind of goofy, odd thing that approaches within this series, because let's just kind of throw the kitchen sink at it and see if people actually watch it, because they were just kind of coming up with content, because they had free reign to do whatever they wanted. And they kind of mentioned that within I think really just immediately right off the gate, I think in episode 2, they're kind of just saying yeah, I know that we kind of we shouldn't have probably put the title so late, but whatever. They're hey man, I get it. It's just people want more of The Boys, and they're kind of tired of waiting. And so this is going to be the outlet for that, and I get it. So yeah. We, of course, the one good thing that I do like is we technically do have some of the voices from the actual show be put in place into this animated thing, because there's a lot of times where you have the animated and the live action aren't one and the same. Kind of look at the Supernatural animated series, where only Jensen Ackles was on the very last episode of that, and he was only on the season finale of the episodes. And I was okay, well, He's probably done that and experienced that before. He was also just really busy, and like some characters were to just go on and just kind of do a decent Jensen Ackles for that series. So, with that said, so yeah, I would have to grade this show as, I would have to say that this is a okay show. Just based off of like half of the show being interesting to watch. But like really, if you want to go and re-watch any boys seasons, I would probably recommend that first. Like really a lot of people would go on to something like this regardless and watch it regardless just because they want more superhero content. Um, I really wish in the near future there is a lot more kind of animated, adult-eshed superhero content because stuff like Super Crooks really worked. So, well, for me at least. So, with that said, let's go out of our way to just go into more detail about this episode, even though I was very vague about what's going on. Uh, Really, like, once we get into more detail, people kind of feel very weird about a lot of these episodes. And plus, the episodes are very short. Really, it's just easier for me to, like, describe the episodes for people to just go, oh, okay, so click or not interested or whatever. Like, oh, okay, like, I can see what he meant by certain blah, blah, blah episodes. So, with that said, let's go into this double five time territory. Let's just go into spoilers about these episodes because they're only like really 11 minutes in length or 10 to 11 minutes. So really, like I would just recommend like if you want to know what the episodes are about, listen to the spoiler part and then you can make your clear consensus and if you want to watch this show or not. So conveniently, it's on Amazon. So probably a number of people checked this out regardless and found it to be odd, because I sure did. So let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time you can do spoil this show. So in the very first episode, we have a baby who is just to be called Laser Baby. You could probably figure out what that character does based on this poster. So we have this scientist who is to fall in love with this baby who is to be cyclopsing or laser heat vision consistently every time this baby sneezes. And so it seems that Simon, who is to be this kind of very redheaded character at the very corner here, like right here, we of course have Simon, who is actually voiced by the same guy who did the Sonic voice for the Sonic movie, and probably the sequel also. We have Simon going on, and he is to take this baby, and after it is taken Compound V, and is wanting to escape with this child. All of a sudden, we have some security going on and checking this guy as he's trying to leave, and the baby is to leap off with this kind of red ball. So we have Simon who's going on and desperately trying to chase after this baby, after this baby is consistently going on and laser beaming its way through a number of people, which is to basically be like the VOT security detailed people. So we, of course, within this episode, eventually have a villain who shows himself, who of course is to be a guy named uh, let me pause here for a second. We have a character named Superbrain that is going on and trying to attack both this laser baby and both Simon, and we go on and we have this laser baby who sneezes and chops this guy's head in half, and Superbrain is trying to go on and try to put his brain back into his head, but then he goes on and just is to die off. And so we really just have it to where both Simon and this laser baby are to just be kind of family, and it seems like anybody that the laser baby is to be attached to or is to be running away from, she lasers them to death. So, very odd episode. So, and that's really the run of the mill of the whole entire episode for the first episode. So, in the second episode, here's where things start to really get weird if it wasn't already weird. So, we go on, we have Christian Slater in this episode who's to be the narrator. So we actually have somebody legitimately talking in this episode, because I didn't think there was going to be like anybody who says anything in this show. I thought it was going to be like a silent show where nobody was to really talk, because that's kind of how the first episode is. So in the second episode, we have Christian Slater who plays the narrator, and we come to find out that there is a number of families who are to have their kids take Compound V, and the end result is something that really is to be like saddening to them, that they ended up giving their kids as Compound V just to have them turn into the opposite of what a superhero should be. Like, we of course have a guy named Boombox who is to consistently play this one song at a very loud, high volume, but of course it's to be the Hootie and the Blowfish song over and over and over, and that's it. So we have Ghost, who can't eat, can't really much do anything, can't touch people, and so, like, she might be hungry or she might be thirsty or whatever, but she can't do anything about it because she's a ghost and she can't touch things. But it seems like she can phase through certain objects, and or maybe see what's inside a safe or a vault or whatever. So we also have characters who have the ability to superheat their junk for whatever freaking reason. We have of course the human tongue, that is to be this just big massive tongue that's all muscle, and this person is to be partnered up with this character called Big, who's this kind of big monstrous looking man. And so we have kind of these this collection of, I would call it the Island of Misfit Toys, if you've ever seen like the Rudolph movie, where you have all these characters that are to be like the downside. And I remember there was this one animated show that I keep wanting to like try to figure out what the heck the name was, where you had this like group of superhero people, but they had these like weird superpowers that like weren't all that helpful. Like, we had like one guy who could only, like, his power was that he can like increase his size by like a couple of inches, and like I think that was his power from that show. And so it's like, okay, like, we had all these characters that had these very goofy powers that really didn't make sense. But eventually, at some point, like, I tried to search it and I tried to find it, and I just couldn't find what that was. But anyways, so probably Google search it at some point and figure it out, but I could care less because I don't think that was all that great of a show. But anyways, it doesn't matter. So what ends up happening is we have all these people kind of scarred from the fact that these characters all kind of become kind of like how all like Charles Xavier kids eventually became, where all of these parents were trying to desperately ship this kid off to this place for these kids to all just be like stuck there because nobody, like everyone either hated and feared them or just really just was like, I don't want to deal with them. Like I didn't get out of this what I wanted. Like I paid so much money for like a Homelander, and I got like what would be the worst superhero or villain? Um, like I got uh, like I got Mole Man, or I got some goofy thing that I didn't really want. So it's kind of like returning something after you didn't like the end product. So eventually, what happens is all of these Island of Misfit Toys people all decided it's like, you know what, like they're all kind of scarred by the fact that their parents were to belittle them and or to treat them like trash to throw away, that they decided to all go on and find out who has the information of their addresses of their biological parents. And all these characters decide to go on and kill off every single one of their parents. So we go on, we start having these characters go and try to find this paperwork that says this, and we have a guy who all of a sudden his name is to be Papers, or Paper, and his power is to go on and find certain paper, but the problem with it is the paper has to conveniently be in a spot where like paper could be easily opened up. Like if anything, like the actual papers were in some safe somewhere, and paper was like, well, I could probably sense that, but I wasn't. But the paper couldn't get out of that location because Ghost figured it out. So we go on and get all these characters on this rampage to go and one by one start killing off their parents. And the funny one is actually Mo Slow, who is to do everything in slow motion. And so he takes his dad, and it's to see that he's in bed and he's slowly going. He's slowly going and choking out his dad. And so, like, this guy's dad is like, oh, Moso, hey, like, what are you doing? Hey, buddy, what? And so, like, we have him, like, slowly choking his dad, and then, like, we have, like, two other, like, guys that are going on, like, how long do you think this is gonna take? Like, come on, like, we got a number of other people. So, yeah, so slowly but surely this guy does die, but in a very slow fashioned like pace. So we have, of course, Human Tongue that squeezes the life out of her or her parents. We have the Boombox who blazes his I only want to be with you kind of Hootie and the Blowfish song, to where it blows out their like skulls and his parents, and so they go on and they continue. So how do we have Ghost kill her parents? Well, it seems that we have other people kind of pitching in for Ghost, and she's to kind of hold on to the hand, possibly the person that is to kind of put the boots to this character. And so all of a sudden, Homelander and a number of police are to realize what's going on. And so Homelander is to go and wipe out every single one of these mutants with the exclusion of Ghost, because Ghost can't be killed because she's technically already Ghost. So we basically have it where Homelander is to like wipe everybody out, because that's really just Homelander. You'll see that in episode 8. So, well, not really wipe them out, but gets pretty close. So we then and I think we also had the one kid, I think, that was called Kingdom, who weirdly can change from him being human to him being some animal. But the problem is that when he becomes an animal, he doesn't have any like brain control over that animal, and so like all of a sudden he'll just become like this snake, and he'll just kind of slither away, and they're like, "Hey guys, catch him!" Like we got to go and catch him. Or he becomes this big, huge gorilla, and he just sits in this chair, and he's like, he broke the chair, and he's fiddling with this stuff. And so he mentions that when he's usually an animal, like he eats his own crap or he eats other people's crap. And so fascinating, right? So so now we go on to a third episode, which of course is to be called I'm the Pusher. So in this episode, we kind of start to actually do tie some of the boys members, really. We kind of have Billy the Butcher, we have Homelander, we have Jack from Jupiter, who I guess is to be this kind of like Martian Manhunter kind of character. If you guys know anything about the Justice League cartoons or any number of the animated movies that they have gone undone through a number of time. And we have Maeve, who's in this episode also. But let's talk about how this rolls out. So we have Billy the Butcher, who is to find a dealer who is to be called Oswald Danica. And so Billy is squeezing this guy because he knows every single deal that this guy goes on and does. And so evidently Oswald is to go on and give Homelander this coke that is laced with adrenaline, and Maeve is to get like certain medications also. And so we have this one character who's called Great Wide Wonder, and so Billy is asking Oswald, Billy the Butcher is asking Oswald, hey, what are you giving this guy? And Oswald is to basically say that he's giving him an enema. And he's like, oh. It seems that Ironcast, this kind of big, metalled fat guy, is to, of course, get, like, children's blood. And because it's the only thing that can give him a stiffy whiffy. So in this, we now have it where Billy the Butcher wants Oswald to go on and have this concoction mixed with the Great Wide Wonder's enema, and to kind of see what happens, because he wants the Butcher wants the Great Wide Wonder to eventually just kind of get derailed. And so what ends up happening is we have the Great Wide Wonder, who is trying to earn possibly a spot into the Seven, because he's not actually a Seven member. And so the Great Wide Wonder is supposed to perform this trick where he's supposed to fly through this fired flame, bizarrely. I'm like, okay, like, there's a load of build to do this for some odd reason. And so the Great Wide Wonder is flying, and he's flying absurdly fast to where we have it where he's like breaking windows and all kinds of things. That's how fast he's flying. We find out that the Great Wide Wonder had at one point taken a number of kids as far up to orbit and had just all left them there. That's why the Butcher wants to take this guy out, simply because he had probably killed a number of kids to try to get them to as close as space as humanly possible. While speaking of that, we had the Great Wide Wonder, who makes his way up to space orbit and starts to get frozen, but then he crashes back onto Earth just in the nick of time. So we also have the Butcher, who is with Hugh Campbell, which I believe is actually uh, the God, the one kid who had his girlfriend being killed by A-Train. This is that guy's father. If you guys were ever to watch The Boys, Huey. Oh my God, man! Did I just pull that out of a freaking hat there? Because I'm just like, I don't remember this guy's name. I think it's Huey. So we but we go on and we have the Great Wide Wonder. I almost said White Wonder. The Great Wide Wonder, who is flying so fast, and like we have Maeve, who's kind of tracking about how fast this guy is flying. It's like, okay, Mach 1, Mach 2, so on and so forth. So the Great Wide Wonder, instead of going on and flying through this fiery hoop, instead he flies right through Ironcast, and now Great Wide Wonder is to basically be torn apart, making his way through Ironcast, and Ironcast has a hole through his chest, and so both of these characters are annihilated both at once, and so now Maeve and Jack from Jupiter and Homelander are like, well, what should we do? And so they go on and say that there is a horrifying satellite presence that you can't see because it's right in front of the sun. And so some people are saying that they can see this satellite or see this this entity that the Seven are gonna have to fight. And so all of them just start getting the heck out of there, like, hey, let's go. So, because they don't want to be tied to any of this. So, like, we have it where, like, kind of, like, that's how kind of this episode kind of fizzles out for this one. So, going on, of course, into the next episode, we have it where Vought is trying this experimental medication of sorts. So we had Boyd that's going on, and he is to have this neighbor that he really wants to impress, but like Boyd realizes that he doesn't have the best looks, and so Boyd is going through these kind of like the 7 filters to kind of see like, oh, I can look like A-Train. Oh, I can look like the Deep. Oh, I can look like, ooh, Homelander. Yeah, like strong chin and everything like that. So Boyd goes on, and he, of course, is to go to Vought, and they're experimenting on like, I guess, this compound that once you kind of put it on your face, you like kind of just imagine what you want as far as looks, and you'll get it. So Boyd goes on and is to all of a sudden look like Homelander, and he's like, oh my God, like, I look so amazing. And so they tell him, it's like, hey, just don't put too much of it on. I think probably out of all these episodes, I honestly like episode 4 probably the most, just because it's kind of the most like creative, I feel, and plus also like it's kind of one of those where I think relates to me most with these kind of characters that kind of out of nowhere just become these huge viral successes for whatever reason. So Boyd goes on, and he is to decide, like, well, you know what, like, since I, like, have all these ruggedly good looks now, and, like, I'm gonna go over and try to win over this girl named Cherry, who he goes on with her, and he is like, goes out with her, wins her over. We find out Cherry, like, when she goes home, she realizes that she just doesn't like her freckles, and when she goes through her filters, she would normally want to go through, like, a Snapchat or something like that, and want to be like this cat. Weirdly, she has a thing about cats for some reason. And so all of a sudden we have both Boyd here and we have Cherry, who are getting intimate, things are getting heavy, and so all of a sudden we have Cherry who goes on, and one night she goes into this guy's bathroom and is like, what's this? All of a sudden she goes on and puts this stuff all over her face, and she turns into this cat-like character with this tail and everything. And Boyd tries to explain what he tried to do, and Cherry's like, you know what, like, this is fine. Like, do you like me like this? And Boyd's like, sure. And so both of them fall in love. Both of them go on to go into the public with one another, and all of a sudden everybody's like, like, who is this fancy couple? And so all of a sudden we see that these two characters have started to go viral. That all of a sudden we just have, like, somehow or another that these people are to get, I guess, maybe Instagram, or because I don't think they're really doing YouTube videos. We start having these subscriptions upon these people just skyrocketing to absurd degrees, like 216 million subs and whatever, for whatever they're doing, because I wasn't exactly sure exactly what they were doing. So we had these two characters. Everything is going skyrocketingly well until we start to get some drugs into the mix of things. And so we start to go on and have these people that, of course, are to uh, do some kind of scandalous things, fight with people, get into arguments, and all of a sudden, like, their popularity starts going so far down that all of a sudden it just starts to become non-existent, even to where at some points that these characters might have eventually jail time. So all of a sudden, and of course we have one of the characters from the boys on this episode, and it's to be Ashley Barrett. And so Ashley goes on and cuts both Boyd and both Cherry from this program, and they can no longer get this stuff to kind of change their looks, because these characters are kind of lacing, like, this stuff all over their body to look muscular, and to look however it is the way they look. So now it gets down to the point where both Boyd and Cherry are kind of fighting over the last remaining, like, thing of goop, uh, and so they're literally fighting over this, and all of a sudden the last bit of this stuff goes on to go into the toilet by accident, and then they realize, well, I guess that's it, like, that's all that we have left. And so it seems that after they go on and lose all of their good looks, it seems that both of them are to still kind of like one another, and Boyd is to kind of like Cherry's freckles, and so it seems like everything is going well. And this episode does kind of remind me of a Black Mirror episode. The guy who ends up playing, God, what is it? The U.S. Patriot, or the U.S. Uh, the guy who goes on and is being like Captain America in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, who kind of replaces Steve Rogers. That guy ends up playing a Black Mirror episode where, at the very end of it, we're thinking that this guy is going through this virtual reality and he's seeing all these horrific things. But then we turn around and actually find out that there was an accident where this guy is to have his phone on and it melts his brain or something like that. And so we kind of see the same thing happen at the end of this episode, where we really realize that Boyd, I guess they were to go on and put too much goop onto this guy's face, and I guess it was to melt his face and brain and whatever, and it killed him. And so, like, okay, we'll just, like, throw this guy in the trash, basically, hide this guy away. So now we go on to basically an episode that is literally, it's literally crap. Because figuratively and literally. So we have this character who calls himself Kyle or Sky. And so Sky is to go on and give in to peer pressure and is to try and sell, or is to try to buy off weed from this drug dealer. And so this drug dealer is to all of a sudden realize that the Deep is after him, just by him seeing some billboard of the Deep. And so this guy is going crazy, and so he's driving like a wild man. All of a sudden he crashes into this one place, this like aquarium, or this kind of fish tank place, where all of a sudden all these fish are kind of coming into, and so this guy's being very paranoid. And oh my god, like, these fish talk to the Deep, oh my god. So we have Sky that runs away from this man with a vial of Compound V and some weed. And so we then go on and have Sky's friends try and smoke this weed, and they're wrapping it up in a very obscure manner. And so they start smoking this weed, and it's like, okay. So it seems that Sky is to have this idea. It's like, well, hey, maybe if I take this Compound V, maybe my friends will, like, respect me more, or maybe I'll have a really cool power, like, maybe I'll win their respect, blah, 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 blah. So Sky takes his Compound V and is to wake up the next day, and he is to need to take a dump. All of a sudden, we realize that Sky is to have somebody talk to him from his inside, and we find out that really this character wants out of Sky's body. We find out that this is basically the equivalent of Mr. Hanky. This is a this is a thing of crap that basically is to have its own personality, and it seems like this thing is trying to even be much more cooler than Sky is. Sure. And this thing ends up calling itself Areola, because Sky, of course, is to think like, well, like, I know my mom, like, she used to be called Georgia, and so, like, I figured that'd be a nice name, and, like, this thing of crap is just like, well, you know what, like, that's great and all, but I'd rather have, like, a more interesting, cool name, because Georgia kind of sounds like a crappy name. It's like, okay, sure. So we go on and we have both Sky and we have both crap who go on here. And so we rarely have it where Vought is wanting to desperately go and try to, like, steal this turd away from Sky. And so, weirdly, the Deep ends up getting involved in this. And I'm just like, really? Out of all the things for the Deep to have to do, just, okay, sure. So, the Deep goes on, and eventually we have it where uh like Sky is having to rescue his own turd, and then goes on and flushes his turd so that way he can go through this sewer system to try and save it and find it. And all of a sudden the Deep gets involved and he's like, "Hey," and he starts rambling on about all of this like this charity work that he's doing, not even paying attention to the kid, but he's like, "Hey man, like put the turd in the bag." Like I don't even want to touch it. And so all of a sudden we find out what Sky's actual power is that he can use turds and have them fight against whatever. And the Deep is like, seriously, this is what your superpower is? And he's like, no, like I'm just, like I'm out, like no. So we just go on and at the end of this have just Sky who, like, I guess if he can't like have friends or he just won't like give a about his friends, he's gonna go on and instead basically use his crap power to humiliate certain people and to realize that like crap can basically be his friend. So kind of very oddish like episode, but let's move on. So we at least got that covered. So the next up episode, of course, is to be a guy named Groundhog. Not Groundhog, Groundhog is going on and I think robbing a bank. So Groundhog is to really just have these hammers for hands, weirdly. I don't know why. And so we have both this girl named Nubia and the Nubian prince who are going on and finding one another as if this is like the Black Panther and the Black Panther's lover. No offense, like I'm just like it's a quick and easy comparison. Uh, so like as if like this is kind of like the Black Panther and Storm basically, because that's basically what it is. So we go on and have this couple who's like love at first sight, but we really find out that this is kind of like a manufactured thing. Hence why that eventually these this Nubia and the Nubian prince go on to start not really exactly loving one another, and they start fighting one another. Because we find out that the Groundhog was, of course, having a script to follow, and so he was technically working with these characters. So we have a little girl that gets produced between Nubia and the Nubian prince, who is called Maya. And so Maya is realizing that her parents are fighting and that they're possibly going to get a divorce because the mother is kind of saying that it's like, yeah, me and your father, we're going to get a divorce. We're going to give you a pony afterwards. So Maya is trying to keep her parents together. And so she goes to try and find the Groundhog to try and persuade the Groundhog to fight his or her parents again so they can rekindle that love. And so the Groundhog is like, really? Like, I'm gonna, like, I don't know. And, like, Maya's just like, well, hey, I can help you out with, like drinking your drinks, and because this guy's, like, he has hammers for hands. So Maya's just like, well, I can help you around this place. And so Groundhog is like, okay, sure. So Groundhog goes and is to find both these characters, and we have this kind of story where it's possibly that like Groundhog had kidnapped this girl, and like that's gonna be like the story. And so we of course have Nubia and the Nubian prince who's realizing like Groundhog, like, hey, he's not even in our Rolodex of like characters to take down anymore. But the Groundhog's like, no, take me, come on. So they fight and they basically beat the pulp out of this guy who's just trying to put this couple back together. And so finally we have it where this couple is to like start to like remember. And so this all of a sudden leads these characters to just like continue to just bang it out while their daughter is just kind of listening on, and she's like shoving her pillows under her ears. And again, we have it where this couple is starting to go on and just fight again, to where Maya is to just like throw her hands up and kind of give up. Where Maya is to kind of like, here's the divorce papers, give me my pony. Like, I don't care anymore, just like, I've tried, and like, this is never gonna work. So, go your separate ways, F it, I'm done. Mic drop. So, within the next episode, we now have a guy named John, who is to seemingly be this janitor for this hospital, watching over his wife, who is Sun Yi, who is having her health start to decline. So John goes on, and he, of course, is to figure out a way to get Compound V, and he is to taser gun one of these guards. So Sun Hee is to put Compound V into Sun Hee, and she gets powers that is to technically bring her back from the brink of death. So, but we find out that Sun Hee has these weird goofy powers that eventually have it be that she's kind of a threat to other people, and she's kind of like a Venom kind of character, where all of a sudden she has these kind of like things like coming from out of her chest. All of a sudden she starts attacking people and murdering people, and John and Sun Hee realize that this is not a good kind of power that this girl has. And so all of a sudden Sun Hee is telling John to kind of pull over, as both of them are trying to run for their lives. So John does pull over, and all of a sudden we have Sun Hee, who eventually releases this thing from out of her chest that all of a sudden is to start to kill a number of Vought soldiers and start to wipe a number of things out. So Sun Hee is telling John that they need to go on and try to figure out a way to take this thing down. And so we have John, who uses like this taser gun against this thing, but doesn't work. So Sun Hee figures out, like, with her power to try and fight this thing, and I guess she is to take it out. It doesn't really seem like there's a real thing at the end of this. So within the last episode, we of course have Homelander, who is to premiere himself. And so we have like Stan Edgar, who of course is in this last episode, and we also have Madeline Stillwell, who a lot of people know as like kind of Homelander's kind of either mother, or like there's in either a mother or a girlfriend or something like that, kind of weirdly mixed together. I'm not quite sure. It's a very weird and goofy relationship with these two, and we always wanted to kind of define that or figure out what that was, but we never really did. And plus, eventually, if you kind of see how the boys play out, you'll understand why. So we, of course, have Homelander, who we find out is a very deeply scarred individual. That we consistently see that this character was experimented on and probably damaged and hurt and whatever. And so Homelander is being accepted into the Seven, and Homelander is going on and like, man, like, I've always ever wanted to do two things: play baseball and play baseball. And he mentions that he would love to just have been at a Yankee stadium and being able to either um, like sit at the dugout or be able to play with the Yankees. And so we have Homelander, who is to also have Black Noir as a hero also within this group. I'm not quite sure if it's 100% the Seven yet, but I think it might be like the starting of the Seven. So Black Noir is to come out and everybody's like, yeah, oh great, it's Black Noir. And all of a sudden Homelander's like, oh, he's stealing my spotlight. And we have Homelander and Stillwell talking to one another. Madeline's like, hey, he stole your spotlight. He stole your moment. And so Homelander is just thinking, it's like, well, maybe there's a thing or two that I can learn from Black Noir. Maybe there's something I can go on and and I can kind of take from his experience. And so we then have Homelander, who's to go on and have his own mission, where there seems to be a number of normal human beings going on and holding these people and ransoming them, or just kind of holding them up, trying to get something out of this. And so Homelander goes on and he is to kind of bend all of their guns, and so none of them can go off. And so we have the one guy who's just like, well, hey, I can still shoot this gun and the gun will explode and this will kill this guy still. And so Homelander is like, well, if I can superheat the gun, then you won't be able to do that. And so all of a sudden Homelander is to be this kind of green rookie, and he accidentally, instead of superheating the gun, he accidentally explodes the gun with heating it too high, and that not only kills the robber, but then kills the victim, or the guy that didn't do anything wrong. So all of a sudden Homelander, we start having people accuse him of oh my god, you're a murderer. How could you do that? So all of a sudden Homelander is starting to get more and more all of this horrible trauma is coming into his brain, and all of a sudden we just start seeing a number of people just either dead or lasered or killed or whatever. And so now we have it where Black Noir is to realize this. Because there's one person left that's kind of this innocent bystander, that's what I was trying to say. And she's running off, and Homelander is kind of running after her. So all of a sudden now it becomes like a battle between Black Noir and Homelander, because Homelander is like, oh my god, you saw that, you know what I did. So Homelander is trying to attack Black Noir, because Homelander is also thinking that Black Noir is trying to steal his spotlight consistently. So Black Noir is just kind of like, hey, whoa, hey, whoa. So, because Black Noir, of course, can't speak, so he can't say anything to Homelander. And it's kind of that really funny joke in the early stages of The Boys, where Homelander kind of turns to Black Noir and is like, hey, Black Noir, how was your day? And Black Noir just, it's like, really? So he could, we find out that Black Noir can go on and pass a note, but anyways, so we have Black Noir, and it's kind of the chase for this woman, and Black Noir is to grab this woman. We're thinking that, oh, Black Noir is going to save her. Black Noir takes this woman's neck and snaps it, and then is to go on and just and is to look at Homelander, hold on a minute. So Black Noir busts out this note and he starts writing things down, and he gives this paper to Homelander, and Homelander's like, Oh, so all of a sudden we go on and we now have it where Homelander is making this emotional speech to these news reporters, and he is to feel horrible that all of those lives were lost, but he tried his best. And the reporters are like, "Oh yeah, no one's blaming you for uh, like these people being killed. Like, if anything, like yeah, like these horrific people just did this horrific act, and you were just caught in the crossfire, kind of thing." And so we have Homelander that's trying to feel just so like emotional and whatever about all this, about all the carnage that is like laying wait, and so yeah, they have it to where they like spin it to where it's like yeah, these evil doers like, and I just couldn't get to them in time, and that's what happened. Like a bomb went off, and there was nothing I can do. So we have Homelander that goes on back to talk to Stillwell, and Homelander is telling Stillwell, I guess there was something that I could learn from Black Noir after all. And kind of like that's how the episode ends. So, with that said, I think that covers The Boys Diabolical Season 1. So, with that said, I think I'm going to get the heck out of here so I can go on and review something else. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about The Boys Diabolical, if you thought that it was an odd show, if you didn't like it, if you thought it was a waste of time. I can understand any number of wrong of whichever. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about maybe even the Boys seasons. If you're excited for season 3 to come out, if you can't wait for season 3 to come out because it's probably taking far too long for certain people, and so on and so forth. I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.